Okay, so we're talking about cells, and we talked about the anatomy of cells. We talked about the cycle of cells, how they came up. Oh, I forgot to say, what's going on, my seventh grader students? This is the one class I have the lowest grade in. I'm sorry, Chelsea. Um, yeah. Try to let's find a homework or homework assignments that you've been missing, and we can make sure to get it up, get that grade higher. Sound good? Anyway, what's going on, my seventh grade students? Let's get this party started. Um, we're talking about, we've talked about the cell and the different parts of it. We've talked about the cycle that the cell goes through to duplicate itself, and so on and so forth. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the different types of cell. And one of the things that I'd like to show you is this Komodo dragon, which has the skin cell, and I've magnified it 12 times just to show you the skin cell of a Komodo dragon, which helps with the Komodo dragons. It's specialized for protection. It's really interesting. But the thing that is, what I want to show you about it is, that's not the only type of cell that that the Komodo dragon is made of. There are many different types of cells that can go into a Komodo dragon or even a human being or anything else. Well, anything else that was living. Yeah, I'm sorry, I did show you this on Monday. So we talked about unicellular organisms, which is basically organisms that only have one cell, and obviously that one cell has to do all of the jobs of, for that organism. It has to, that one cell has to provide energy, it has to provide food, it's got to clean, it's got to cook, it's got to, go to work every day and all of that kind of stuff. Cleaning and cooking, yeah, I was just kidding. But I mean, you guys understand what I mean. It has to provide all of the different functions for regular living organisms, but it's only got one cell to do it. So there's different parts of that one cell that actually is very helpful. Multicellular organisms is basically any kind of organism that is operating on more than one cell, is made up of very many eukaryotic cells. Okay? Now, for example, and these eukaryotic cells each play a specialized role. I think the one good example is it's like a crew on an airplane where, like, on an airplane you've got a mechanic, you've got a flight attendant, you've got a pilot, you have all of these different pieces that keep this airplane functioning. So you need to specialize in, but they have specialized jobs. So let's talk about cell differentiation. And this has nothing to do with calculus, although the word differentiation is often associated with calculus. Cell differentiation is when the process in which a cell becomes different types of cell. So what's the crazy thing is all cells in any multicellular organism all come from one cell, right? Like, for example, humans have eggs in them. The females do, at least. The men have sperm in them. And they both combine together to form a fertilized egg. And that fertilized egg is your one cell that you start off from. That everything starts off from. All the animals start off from. But then we've talked about the cycle that thing goes through, and it quickly divides itself and duplicates itself after fertilization. And these different, it divides itself and turns itself into different types of cells. For example, you have the nerve cells, or the red blood cells, or the bone cells, or the muscle cells. And that's pretty much the 4 kinds of cells that are inside of our bodies. So what's really interesting is that, remember, all of these cells have those things that we call chromosomes in them. Faustine, yes, you are late, but you're not that late. We actually started pretty late. I think you're only like 6 minutes late. All right. Remember, all cells have chromosomes in them, and the chromosomes are like the blueprints. They're like what the cell uses. If the cell were a construction worker, it's what the cell uses in order to figure out exactly how to build it. The thing about it that's really interesting is if they're all working off of the same chromosomes, then how are they making different types of cells? Does that make sense? Like, well, I guess, does the question make sense to you? That's what I was wondering when I read this. I was thinking, well, wait a second. If they're all using the same blueprint, why do they all come out so different? Hello, can you hear me? Yes, no, maybe? I don't know. Okay, all right, awesome. All right, so here's what I found out is what they're doing is the different cells are using different parts of the instructions. So the blueprints, the chromosomes, contain almost everything that's needed, and the different cells are only reading like one chapter out of that book. Does that make sense? So what's happening is you have different cells that are working off the same blueprint, but it's only reading different parts of it. All right, not all cells in animals differentiate. For example, stem cells, STEM cells, is an unspecialized cells that may be able to develop into many different types of cells. So it's kind of like your original building block of cells. And you can change this, you can transform this building block of cells into whatever you want, into all the different types of cells, but it's almost like the stuff that you have before. And I know that a lot of you folks have heard about like stem cell research, and why do they have to get it from babies? Well, the reason being is because adult stem cells are, babies have more stem cells than adults, because for adults, they've taken their stem cells and they've already specialized them. So it's almost like in adults, adult stem cells have lost their ability to change it into whatever you want, because you've already changed it into something you want. Whereas babies don't have that problem, so babies have more stem cells than adults do. Cool? Plants also have their version of stem cells. These stem cells are called, these plant cells are called meristems, MERISTEMS, right here, meristems. Meristems are different, are in different areas of the plant, including right on the tip of the roots and also right on the tip of the leaves. And what happens is these different types of cells can be specialized into structures that will be used to either transport material or make food or store food or protect the plant. And these different types of cells become different parts of the flower depending on what's needed. Does that make sense? So we have stem cells. Moving on. Can you guys hear me? All right. A different type of cell is called tissue cells, and these are really important to everything, pretty much. Similar cells work together to form different types of muscle tissue. For example, this one right here is parts of a. This one right here is the animal tissue of stomach cells, and they help basically with digestion. They can pull together, contract, and all of that kind of stuff.
What?
Is that what you need, or did you want to sit down here? Sorry, I got another sleep.
I like my antibiotics.
What is that?
Antibiotics.
Okay. All right. The other type of cells is tissue cells is in plant cells, and they are, I mean, they have these vascular tissues which allow, water and nutrients to move through them. They have these little pipes and holes in them. So humans, like pretty much all other animals, have 4 different types of tissue cells. One is the muscle cells, another tissue cell is connective, another one is the nervous, and the other one is the epithelial. Epithelial, that's spelled Epithelial. And they're really important for doing certain jobs. For example, the muscle tissues, they'll help with movement and moving things around. And the nervous tissue, what they do is they carry a message from the muscle to the brain. And the epithelial tissue, what it does is it actually forms a protective layer. That tissue is a protective layer that forms around major organs and also the outer layer of skin. There's different types of tissue cells that are in plants. The 3 main types are called the dermals, the vascular, and the ground tissue. The dermal tissue provides protection and helps the reduce water loss. The vascular tissue, what that does is it transports water and nutrients from one part of the plant to another. And the ground tissue, what that does is it's the, I don't know, what do you call it? The self-storage facility where it stores a lot of the water and where a lot of the photosynthesis takes place. It's like the warehouse of the plant. Here's another picture of the dermal and the vascular tissues that are inside of this thing. The reason why I'm showing you this picture is because I wanted to talk about organs. And obviously humans have organs. Can you name a few of the organs that are inside of humans? Your intestine organs, sure. And what does that help move, my friend? Because I'm telling you that these organs have different jobs, and they, the different tissues make up these different organs. They help move poop, exactly. They move the waste out of your stomach and into your toilet. Eventually, right? All right, what other kind of organs can you name? The liver, very good. Organs are a group of different tissues. They're really just tissue cells, but they work together to perform a very specific job. For example, our stomach breaks down the food that we have. And they're basically made up of tissue cells that are a combination of all the different 4 types of cells. So, your stomach has a muscle, it has epithelial cells, it has nerve connections, and also has connectivity cells. Plants have organs too. I don't think plants have intestines. No, but they definitely have organs. The leaves, so like this is a picture of a bunch of leaves, okay, are specialized organs actually of the plant that is specialized for photosynthesis. Each leaf is made up of a dermal, ground, and a vascular tissue. The dermal tissue covers the outer surface of the leaf, kind of protects it. The leaf is a vital organ because it contains ground tissues that produce the food for the rest of the plant. And the ground tissue is where the photosynthesis takes place. And then the vascular tissue moves the food that is produced by photosynthesis and the water throughout the leaf to the rest of the plant. So this leaf has the 3 different types of tissue cells that is found in plants, and it's actually one of the plant's organs. It's a little weird because plants have organs, lots of them, on the outside. But then again, if your skin is really made up of that epithelial tissue, then technically I guess your skin is a giant organ that's on the outside. Excuse me, sir, your organs are showing. Anyway, I thought that was fun. All right, usually organs don't work all by themselves. What they usually do is they have different parts working together. Organ systems, and we call that an organ system. An organ system is a group of different organs, and an organ is, of course, a group of different tissue cells working together, and they all work together to perform a series of tasks. For example, the human organ system can be made up of many different systems working together, organs working together. For example, you have the digestive system, which is made up of organs including the stomach, the small intestine, the liver, and the large intestine. And all of these things work together so that we can break down the food that is inside of our body. And then the blood transports nutrients that are broken down from the food into the to cells throughout the body. Plants also have major organ groups. You have the shoot system and the root system. The shoot system, I think, is pretty much everything you can see. It includes the leaves, the stems, the flowers, blah, blah, blah. Whereas the root system is in charge of anchoring the plant down, and also it takes in the water nutrients, and it's all the stuff you can't see. So there's two major organ systems inside of a plant as well. Let's talk about an organism. An organism is basically, when we're talking about multicellular organisms, they pretty much are made up of a bunch of organs. This whole system works together to carry out the jobs needed for this organism to survive. For example, the cells inside of the leaves and the stems of the plants is what are the cells in the leaves and the stems of a plant is what the plant needs to live. The human body, there's a few different major organ systems, and each major organ system depends on the others and can't go all by itself. For example, the muscle tissue, so you have your muscular organ system, cannot survive without any oxygen. So your muscular system requires the respiratory system to work. And then the stomach can't get oxygen without working together. So you need your stomach to actually have oxygen. Your digestive system needs oxygen to help it move things along. So your different, all of these are different kinds of cells, and they perform different types of jobs. And they form different types of organs, which organs form together to form different types of organ systems, and then you put all of those together and you get a person. Does that make sense to you? And that, my friends, is the end of chapter 3, I believe. We're done. Do you mind if I do a quick recap? All right. It should be quick. I technically finished my 2-hour class in about 20 minutes. So I'm allowed to do a quick recap just so that I can make sure that you guys know what you're talking about. All right. Actually, it's going to be more of a question. What does the word differentiation mean in this class so far? Different? Okay.
Different and a variety.
A different and a variety. That's what an Algebra 2 student is saying. Differentiation in this class basically means how a cell changes into different types of cells. So you have the basic cell that will, change into different types of cells depending on the function that's needed. Does that make sense? All right. In this chapter, we also talked about the cell cycle. And remember, there's two different phases. There's the interphase and the mitotic phase. The interphase is pretty much the main one that it goes through. And I don't want to say main one because the mitotic phase is very important. It just happens quickly relative to the interphase. In the interphase, there's three different parts. There's the G1 phase, the S phase, and the G2 phase. It stands for growth 1, the synthesis, and the growth 2 phase. The synthesis phase is the one that I think is really interesting, and it's where you get your DNA replication. The mitotic phase includes two different parts, two different subparts, and that's called mitosis and cytokinesis. A lot of times it's tough to distinguish between mitosis and cytokinesis because they kind of overlap with each other. If you want to look into more detail of mitosis, we can talk about what happens there. Mitosis has 4 different phases. There's the prophase, and the metaphase, and the anaphase, and the telophase. I feel like I'm naming a bunch of like Teletubbies or something. I don't know. I don't even know if you guys know who Teletubbies are. Is that your time or what? I don't know. Can you guys hear me? All right. So in the prophase, what happens is your DNA, which started off as looking like a big bowl of folded up spaghetti, ends up kind of contracting and turning into these chromosomes. You can kind of barely see these darker purple spots that kind of look like a bunch of X's. And we looked at this as like butterfly wings, where there's an identical wing on left side and right side. And then we line up all of these butterflies all vertically along the middle of the cell. Because the idea is we want to get an identical copy on one side as we do on the left side. So what we should do in the anaphase is rip these butterflies in half. One side gets one wing, and the other side gets the other wing, which has the identical information. Pretty gross, I know, but I didn't think about that when I originally came up with the butterfly analogy, but I hate to say it, but it works. After we've ripped these butterflies in half, we've got one guy gets one wing and one of the parts of the cell gets another wing. These things move to the outer edges of the cell, and then eventually this thing gets cleaved in the middle. I think the process is called cleavage, which I thought was funny. No, don't rip the butterfly. Well, it makes sense, right? If you want the identical information, then one person will get one wing and the other person will get the other wing. And that's kind of what happens. Cytokinesis is basically that part where, this one cell turns into these two cells. The last part of mitosis is when these two cells are getting really far separate from each other, and then cytokinesis is when they actually split into the two daughter cells. Why does it not got to be? Why can't it be son cells, huh? Why does it got to be daughter cells? Why do you got to be sexist for? Anyway. Then we talked about the different types of cells, because not all cells are the same, even though they come from the same blueprint, which I thought was crazy. They have the same chromosomes, which is the blueprint of it, but then they can form very different kinds of things. And the main ones that we talked about for humans were the nervous cells, the red blood cells, the bone cells, and the muscle cells. All come from the same single cell to begin with. I think that's crazy. You were made from a single cell, and now you have much more than one in your body. Which actually makes me question. I got a question. How's about this one? If a fertilized egg is one cell, does that mean that the egg was half a cell and the sperm was also half a cell? And then when they got together, they added up to be one cell? See, the math doesn't work out for me. But then again, this is biology, so I guess the math doesn't have to work. But do you guys understand what I'm saying? Like, if this is a single cell, then was the egg half a cell? Or was it a cell to begin with? And then you just added two cells and made one cell that is like this amalgam of, I don't know. I don't know. To be honest with you, I am more of a mathy kind of person, so biology kind of was like, that doesn't make sense to me. All right, we have stem cells, and we talked a little bit about those. Those are the untransformed cells. It's like before I get to specializing these cells, a stem cell can be anything, which is very, very advantageous in certain types of research. The problem is we have to get these stem cells from babies because adults have already chosen what their stem cells have become. They didn't lose them, they just used them. All right, and then we talked about the one type of cell, or one type of thing that a cell can become, which is tissue. And tissue is used in a lot of things. We can also have a bunch of these tissue cells getting together to form organs. And yes, there are organs in plants, and the plants, their organs are the leaves. Kind of crazy. You can actually cut an organ off of a plant by just cutting off a leaf. When you get a bunch of those organs together, so let's see, it starts off from a cell. Those cells differentiate. Those different cells make the tissue cells make the organ. Then a bunch of the organs make an organ system. And a bunch of organ systems make a person. So we talked about the organ system, and there's a bunch of different organ systems like the skeletal system, or the respiratory system, or the nervous system, or the digestive system, muscular system, or the circulatory system. But when you put them all together, you make a person. And I believe that's the end of chapter 3. Not only did I teach it in detail, but I also kind of recapped the whole thing from what we learned on Monday to what we learned today. Are we cool? All right, so one of the things that a lot of students have been asking me about, and they're really curious and worried about, is their final exam. I'm going to tell you this. I'm pretty sure that your final exam is going to be multiple choice. It's going to be focused mainly on the stuff that we've had the most recent readings for. So it's not going to be a final exam that tests you on everything that you've learned this whole year. It's only going to test you on the stuff that you've had readings for chapter 1, 2, and 3. Because that's the life science stuff. Does that make sense? It's also not going to be too drastically different from, like, I don't know, the projects, your homework. You should be able to find all of this stuff. It's not something I would completely freak out about because I think it's going to be relatively straightforward. We cool with that? All right. Then I will talk to you, folks. Actually, I'll talk to you guys next year. Because next week, there is no classes for anybody's classes. You're not going to have a math class, you're not going to have an English class, or a science class, or any other classes. And then after that, because it's finals week, so work on your finals. Don't go to classes, work on your finals. And then after that is winter break, and then after that is January, which technically is next year. So yeah, I won't be talking to you till next year. Which is not saying that you guys should wait an entire year to log on to virtual class. Wait a couple of weeks. Like, seriously, yo. Attend virtual class. Hey, I talk to my, this is how I talk to my 7th graders. They're cool like that. They're all G. It's all G. Mr. All Day's cool, right? Right? Like, I used your cool kid lingo, LOL. BFF and ABC. Alright, you guys. I'll talk to you guys later. You guys take care of yourselves. Let me know if you need any help with anything, alright? Okay, bye.